Welcome to the Launch to Impact Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Keena, a leadership development coach, author, and former nonprofit administrator. I teach emerging leaders how to master the skills needed to effectively engage their staff, strengthen teams, accelerate performance, and position themselves for long-term success. If you haven't done so already, it's probably time to commit. So go ahead and hit subscribe to stay consistent with your growth journey. Now, let's head into the episode. I need to correct something. I have been sharing with you over the last 2 weeks that I believe that the next generation of leaders will stand out due to their resilience, perseverance, emotional intelligence, ingenuity, and social influence. And in those last 2 episodes, I've shared with you what you need to do to improve yourself. But we need to circle back and talk about what to do when your team members lack perseverance and resilience. Now, if you're leading people right now, you've seen it. One person collapses after a setback and another person disappears halfway through the assignment. And then ultimately you're left alone carrying the weight and responsibility of the unfinished work. Well, today I'm going to give you some practical advice on coaching resilience and perseverance together. So let's just kind of make sure we go back and recap what resilience and perseverance are in this context. Resilience is recovery. Resilience is your ability to learn and re-engage after stress, setbacks, defeat, failures, problems, challenges, all the things. Resilience is your ability to bounce back. Perseverance is focused on follow-through. Perseverance is your sustained effort when progress is slow or when things are getting boring. Perseverance is your grit to stick to it. And when either one of these things, perseverance or resilience, is missing from the team, leaders end up overfunctioning. Resilience is what you do after the fall. Perseverance is what you do to complete the journey. And recovery and follow-through aren't the nice to have things. They really are drivers of performance, particularly as we move forward with our newest generation of leaders. There are some resilience gaps though. Resilience gaps are those issues that show up after disruption. And what happens is when our team members are lacking resilience, they really tend to take our feedback personally. They may spiral when they get critical feedback or when they are in a situation where things are not going the way that we've planned and all things aren't perfect, right? They might shut down. They may get defensive. They may, have all of the reasons and point the fingers. And what happens is that setback creates days of lost output for our team. That setback causes us to have lost performance, lost productivity. That setback causes us to be even more inefficient than whatever the situation was that caused us to stumble in the first place. A perseverance gap looks like what happens when things are going well, when things might be boring, when it's just status quo, right? It's what it looks like when we have a strong start, but then all of a sudden we start to see boredom set in. We start to see weakness set in. We start to see our productivity slow down. And ultimately our finish, our setting of goals, our reaching of goals is inconsistent. And so that team member that lacks perseverance might avoid tedious work, that repetitious cycle. They might want to have creativity and new and fresh and exciting things because they're chasing that adrenaline. And their perfectionism really stalls our success because they want to have the shiny, exciting adventure all the time, where sometimes you're not going to have that. Sometimes it's just going to be real mundane. So as a supervisor, you have to deal with these things. But before you deal with these things, you got to be able to really diagnose what the issue is. So a few things that you can do to really quickly diagnose the situation is you want to ask yourself, is this a skill gap? Or is this a requirement gap? Is this a regulation gap? Is this a compliance issue? What we're really trying to figure out is that they won't do it, or they won't stay with it, or won't stick to it? Or is it that they don't have the ability to get it done? Is it a matter of clarity or capacity? So what I'm saying here is, are the expectations clear for this person, or Are they overloaded? Do they have too much to do? Too much that's been assigned, too much that they've taken on, or more than they are just personally capable of handling? And then the third thing we want to think about when we're trying to diagnose the problem is it fear-based? Is this person afraid of criticism, afraid of failure? Are they afraid of looking incompetent? You got to remember, in the day and age where we're very much focused on image, perfection is a constant evil that employees and team members may be battling with. And once you know which one you're dealing with, you can coach the right thing instead of just pushing them harder. If it's a capacity issue, you can focus on capacity. If it is a compliance issue, you can focus on compliance. If it's just their resistance, you can focus on resistance. But you have to know where the real issue is so that you are pushing the bus in the right direction, pushing the bus from the right perspective, right? So if you're working with your team members, right, anytime you are working with your team members who lack certain skills, you have to, as a leader, understand that it requires a level of modeling and coaching. You should be their best example of what success looks like. So the first thing you need to do is you've got to look within to coach them. If you have team members that are struggling with their resilience, that are struggling with their perseverance, you just may be the person that's going to have to help them build those things. And you have to start that by looking at yourself and what it is that you are modeling, what it is that you are conveying to that staff person intentionally, or maybe even subliminally. Hey there. If you're nodding along right now, why don't you go ahead and send this episode to a friend or colleague who's emerging in leadership with you? I'd really appreciate it. Now back to our episode. So start by looking at how you are modeling recovery, or even how you are communicating around those setbacks. Instead of being very shame or blame focused, make sure that you are pointing out the facts. You're pointing out the data. You're identifying what the next steps may be. So if you're asking who did something or why something happened, as you are asking those questions, make sure you're communicating. This isn't about trying to figure out who did something wrong and punishing someone. This is about us trying to get to the root cause so that we can figure out how to best move forward. You also want to look at how your assignments and your directives are being given. A lot of times as leaders, as visionaries, as supervisors, right, we understand how things are supposed to look or how they're supposed to get done, but we don't always do the best job of communicating it from someone that literally is not in our brain already. We see the end goal, and this is their first time. We've had an opportunity to sit with our thoughts. We've had an opportunity to sit with our experience. The person that we are communicating with likely has not had that same opportunity. So you're going to want to make sure when you are communicating about what needs to be done, that first of all, you're giving small chunks, that you're not just saying, this is the big task that needs to be accomplished, get it done. But you are giving small, measurable outputs, and you're dwindling down the elements that need to be addressed. Give small deliverables with clear criteria and deadlines. Who needs to do what, by when, and how? And if you need checkpoints, make sure that you communicate those checkpoints as well. Now, I know some of you are probably going, if I have to tell you how to do it, I might as well do it myself. Well, sometimes you need to communicate how to do it because the team member isn't always clear. Sometimes you have to communicate how because maybe you've created an environment, or the organization has created an environment or a culture where asking questions of your leader may be frowned upon. And so if you are not really clear in what it is that needs to get accomplished or how it should be accomplished, then you will have a gap there that you don't always recognize. The third thing I want you to do is look at your leadership and accountability rhythm. Without becoming a micromanager, You should have ongoing checkpoints or weekly check-ins to address projects, but not just addressing the projects. You also want to address the person. Now, that doesn't have to look like a one-on-one all the time. A lot of us are supervising multiple teams or a team with multiple team members. And so one of the things that I would do when I was in leadership is I would do in every other cycle. And so the first and the third week, I would meet with the team as a whole. And on the second and the fourth week, I would meet with individual team members. That way, everybody got a little bit of a break, but everybody also got a touch point. Touch points are important. This is your opportunity to reinforce what things did or didn't work. This is your opportunity to touch base about your different projects and assignments. But also, as you're letting them know what things didn't go well, you have to also reinforce that you believe that they are capable and that these are the next steps, or even working through what the next steps will be with them. If you don't work through those next steps, it creates all of this sense of uncertainty. You don't want to give your employees room to meander in uncertainty, because that is where people just start making up things. So you want to be clear so that they don't fill in those gaps for you. You also want to reinforce the fact that, listen, sometimes in our work, sometimes in life, the reality is you aren't going to always feel motivated about things, but you have to move forward with your commitments despite how you feel, despite the lack of motivation. And I have some expectations. I have some deadlines. I have some requirements. We have some deadlines. We have some requirements. We have some things, we, the organization, we, the team, that need to be accomplished. So, can you get this done by Friday? Can you have this done by the 15th, as we talked about? What support do you need? You got to reinforce that you are still holding them accountable, but accountability doesn't have to be painful for anyone. Now, these things work because quick wins help to build confidence. That's where that resilience comes in. And then it also builds the completion muscle. That's where perseverance comes in. I'm telling you, there's nothing like that feeling of, oh, I got that thing done, especially when that thing feels like it was a bear to complete, or that thing was this mountain that I was trying to climb. And then these checkpoints help to eliminate the expectation of perfection. And again, as we are dealing with younger and younger staff, as we are dealing with this social media driven generation, it is important that we do not overlook the fact that image is king, and that so many people are focused on the external and this idea that things have to be perfect and that things are going to go well. I mean, we are in a space where everything is subject to editing. And there are times that seeing is not believing. And because of all of that, people feel like they have to show up with perfection. And really, the expectation is progress. And that is what having these regular checkpoints will do. It will give you the opportunity to erase the idea that you as their leader, you as their supervisor, are expecting perfection from them. And it gives them the opportunity to learn through their mistakes. And so what I want from you now is to understand that there are times, and I'm sure somebody's thinking, that this coaching is not going to be enough. And the truth of the matter is sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes what you have to do is remind yourself and that team member that I will support you through your challenges, but I am going to confront refusal, and I am also going to confront lack of progress. And so if this resistance, refusal, or lack of progress continues, you got to document. You got to document along the way anyway, just so that if and when something does fall apart, you're not trying to run around and recover lost conversations. So you should be documenting along the way, good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent. But you need to communicate what you're documenting. you need to share, hey, this is where we are. These are all the touch points. These are the things that we've put in place to support you. And these are the next steps. These are what my expectations are. If you do not meet these expectations, these are the things that are subject to happen. But you also should take some time and really make sure that you are communicating what this position or this role requires, and to make sure that this person has what it takes. Many times when you have that very serious conversation after you've given quite a bit of support, a person will quickly say, you know what? I don't know if I'm the best fit for this position. I don't know that I can live up to the expectations. I don't know that I have what it takes. The next generation of leaders, as I said before, will stand out due to their resilience, their perseverance, their emotional intelligence, their ingenuity, and their social influence. But sometimes they need you leader, to coach the muscles that they're missing. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Launch to Impact Leadership podcast. Remember, your growth creates space for others to thrive. So check the show notes for ways to make your next leadership move. My name is Dr. Keena, and until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building momentum.